I was just a college kid who just finished finals. Yesterday, I was shooting the shit with my buddies in our dorm room, bragging about how I was going to spend the entire summer vegetating. Today, I woke up pinned to a cold marble floor. A woman's voice, cold and hoarse, whispered in my ear, "Liam, if you dare to die again, see what happens." That's when it hit me. I was some kind of living ghost, a stand-in for some psycho's lost love. The kind who'd already died once and been dragged back against his will. A notification pinged in my head. A system. It told me I could stay alive as long as I could placate this dangerously obsessive CEO. The problem is, I have no fucking idea who she is. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. And just like that, the smile on Sophia Blackwood's face vanished, replaced by a look that could freeze hell over. She slammed her wine glass down on the table. A few drops of red splashed out, staining the expensive mahogany like dark bruises. "Break up," she repeated the words, her voice laced with venom. "Liam, you died once. Dare to say those words again." I flinched and quickly held up my hands. That's not what I meant. It was just a random question. Warning, target's anger level has risen to 70%. Host must proceed with caution. The system blared in my head again. Sophia stared at me for a long moment before rising from her chair. She walked over and leaned in close, so close the tip of her nose almost touched mine. She smelled incredible, like a crisp, woodsy cologne, but the proximity sent my heart into overdrive. "You never used to ask things like that," she whispered, her voice low and dangerous. "You used to wrap your arms around my waist and tell me, over and over, that you'd never leave me." Her warm breath ghosted over my ear, and I felt the tips of my ears burn. I instinctively tried to pull back. She clamped a hand on the back of my neck, holding me in place. Her eyes were predatory. "What? Shy now? You never used to be." I could feel her fingertips digging in slightly. My heart hammered against my ribs, and my mind went blank. "Soft. Sophia," I stammered. Don't be so close." Hearing her name made her eyes flicker. The pressure on my neck eased, but she didn't let go. "Liam," she said, locking her eyes on mine, enunciating every word. "Remember, just remember." I saw a storm of emotions in her eyes, desperation, pain, and a raw, obsessive look I couldn't name. A strange pang of sympathy hit me, but my mind was a blank slate. I could only shake my head, my voice full of apology. "I'm sorry, I really can't remember." The light in her eyes dimmed. She finally released my neck and turned her back to me, her shoulders trembling slightly. The study fell into a dead silence. I just stood there completely lost, with no idea what to say or do. After a long while, she spoke, her voice raspy and barely audible. Go back to your room." I blinked, not quite believing what I'd heard. You're letting me go?" "What?" She turned around, her expression once again glacial. "You don't want to? You'd rather stay here with me?" No, I said, shaking my head vigorously. "I'll go right now." I practically fled the study. Back in my room, I closed the door and realized my entire back was soaked in sweat. This woman was terrifying. One second she was lost in a tender memory, the next she was ready to snap. I collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling, my mind replaying images of Sophia. Her smile, her rage, the deep pain in her eyes. Ding! Host has demonstrated an emotional response toward the target. Achievement unlocked. Initial engagement. Reward. Life value plus 5%. I just stared. Was this system for real? Getting scared out of my mind counted as an achievement. Whatever, an increase in life value was a good thing. At least now, I wouldn't have to worry about accidentally getting myself killed with a stray word. I stayed in my room all afternoon. No one bothered me until early evening, when there was a soft knock on the door. "Come in." I thought it was Sophia, but it was a woman in a housekeeper's uniform. "Mr. Evans, it's time for dinner," she said respectfully. "Okay, I'll be right down." I nodded. When I got downstairs, Sophia was already at the dining table. She'd changed into loungewear, a cream-colored cashmere sweater that softened her edges and made her look healthier. She glanced up as I approached, but said nothing. Dinner was even quieter than lunch had been. She didn't put any food on my plate or say a single word, just ate with her head down. I tried to think of something to say to break the silence, but one look at her cold expression and the words died in my throat. After dinner, just as I was about to head back to my room, Sophia finally spoke. Wait, my whole body tensed. I stopped. What is it? Come here. She pointed to the sofa. I walked over and sat down, my stomach churning with anxiety, wondering what she was up to now. She picked up the remote, turned on the TV, and flipped to a channel playing an old black and white movie. On screen, a couple was kissing passionately in the rain. I stared at the screen, feeling awkward. I had no idea why she wanted me to watch this. Remember this? She asked suddenly. I paused, studied the scene, and shook my head. No. We watched this together once, she said, her voice soft. It was raining just like this. When a movie ended, you took off your jacket and held it over my head. You got soaked like a drowned rat. I pictured the scene in my head. It felt warm and a little sad. You also said, she continued, that we would watch this movie together on this day, every year. I looked at her profile, softened by the flickering light of the TV. Her eyes held a distant, nostalgic glimmer. I'm sorry, I said again. It was the only thing I could say. She turned to look at me, her expression unreadable. Liam, you really don't remember any of it? Not a single thing? I searched the empty corners of my mind. Nothing. I just shook my head. She sighed, said nothing more, and turned back to the movie. I tried to watch with her, but my mind was a chaotic mess. By the time the credits rolled, it was almost 11. Go to bed, Sophia said, standing up. Okay. I stood up too and started for the stairs. At the top of the staircase, I glanced back. Sophia was still standing there, watching me. Our eyes met for a second. She seemed startled, then quickly turned and disappeared into her own room. Back in my room, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. My mind was reeling from the day's events. I pulled out the photograph from my pocket and studied it in the moonlight. The boy in the picture had a brilliant, carefree smile. The girl was nestled against him, her eyes soft and full of love. Was that really me and Sophia? Were we really that happy once? And how did I die? Sophia said I died once. Did that really happen? A storm of questions raged in my head, giving me a splitting headache. I don't know how long it was before I finally drifted into a troubled sleep. The next morning, I was woken by a knock at the door. Mr. Evans, time for breakfast. It was the housekeeper again. I rubbed my eyes and sat up, my body aching all over. I guess yesterday's stress had taken its toll. After I washed up and got dressed, I went downstairs. Sophia was already at the table, reading a financial newspaper on a tablet. Morning, I said, hesitating for a moment. She looked up, gave a slight and went back to her tablet. Breakfast was simple. Coffee, toast, some fruit. I ate in silence, not daring to speak. After breakfast, Sophia put down her tablet and looked at me. You're coming to the office with me today. What, the office? I was stunned. What would I do there? You'll come because I told you to. Don't ask so many questions, she said, her brow furrowed. I didn't dare argue. Oh, okay. Ding, new mission issued. Accompany the target to her office and remain for one full day. Reward, life value plus 10%. New memory fragment unlocked. A new memory fragment? My interest was piqued. Maybe going to the office wouldn't be so bad after all. Sophia went upstairs to change while I waited in the living room, feeling a mix of anticipation and nerves. I wondered what her company was like and what she was like at work. About 30 minutes later, Sophia came downstairs. She was wearing a tailored black power suit, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun. Her makeup was flawless and understated. She radiated an aura of pure authority. This was a completely different person from the one at home. This was a woman you did not mess with. Let's go. She picked up her handbag from the sofa and walked out the door. I scrambled to follow her. A black Bentley was parked at the curb, a chauffeur standing respectfully by the door. Sophia ducked into the back seat. After a moment's hesitation, I got in after her. The car was spacious and filled with the same woodsy scent she wore. We didn't speak the whole way. Sophia leaned back against the seat with her eyes closed, lost in thought. I stared out the window at the city flying by, my anxiety growing. About half an hour later, the car pulled up in front of a skyscraper with the words Blackwood Enterprises etched across the top. So she was the CEO of Blackwood Enterprises. No wonder she was so powerful. The chauffeur opened the door. Sophia got out first, and I hurried to keep up. Inside the massive lobby, the receptionist saw Sophia and immediately straightened up. Good morning, Ms. Blackwood. Sophia gave a curt nod and headed straight for the private elevator. Employees around us were stealing glances at me, their eyes filled with curiosity and speculation. I felt their stares on me and looked down, sticking close to Sophia as we entered the elevator. It was just the two of us inside. The silence was thick with tension. Sophia pressed the button for the top floor, then leaned against the elevator wall, her eyes closed again. I stood across from her, sneaking glances. Even with her eyes closed, she commanded the space. The elevator doors opened on the top floor to reveal a sharp, professionally dressed woman who immediately stepped forward. Ms. Blackwood, you're here. Yes, Sophia nodded. Give me today's schedule. Right here. The woman handed her a portfolio. Sophia took it and started walking, flipping through the pages. She glanced at me. You with me? I followed her. The woman shot me a curious look, but knew better than to ask. Sophia led me to a door next to a massive corner office and pushed it open. You'll stay in here today. Don't wander off. I peeked inside. It was a private lounge with a sofa, a TV, bookshelves, and a small wet bar. It looked very comfortable. Okay, sure, I nodded. Sophia said nothing more, disappearing into her office next door and closing the door behind her. I wandered around the lounge, feeling bored. I picked up a book, but I couldn't focus. All I could think about was Sophia in her element, colder and more distant than ever. I don't know how much time passed before the door opened again. The professional woman, her assistant, I presumed, walked in with a cup of coffee. Sir, would you like some coffee? She asked respectfully. No, thank you, I said, shaking my head. She placed the coffee on the table. After a moment's hesitation, she couldn't help but ask, Sir, may I ask who you are? I froze. What was I supposed to say? I'm the ghost of your boss's dead boyfriend, brought back by a system to keep her from going completely insane. I thought for a moment. I'm a friend of Ms. Blackwood's. She nodded as if this made sense, didn't press further, and left the room. I let out a sigh of relief and went back to my aimless waiting, flipping between books and TV channels. Time crawled by. Around noon, the assistant returned and said Ms. Blackwood had instructed her to take me to the executive cafeteria for lunch. I followed her. The cafeteria was huge and crowded. The moment people saw me walking behind the CEO's executive assistant, all eyes were on me. I felt incredibly self-conscious and quickly found a table in a quiet corner. The assistant brought me a tray of food, which actually looked pretty good. As I was eating, I overheard people at a nearby table whispering, Who's that guy with Ms. Davis? No idea. Looks young, like a student. Doesn't he look kind of familiar? I feel like I've seen him somewhere before. Familiar? Don't you remember that picture Ms. Blackwood has in her office? He looks exactly like the guy in the photo. Oh my God. You're right. He's identical. Could he be? They didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what they were thinking. So everyone in the company knew about Sophia's lost love. They even knew what he looked like. A bitter taste filled my mouth. I felt like a cheap knockoff on public display. I scarfed down the rest of my food and hurried back to the lounge. Later that afternoon, Sophia came in. She looked exhausted. She walked over to the sofa, sat down, and rubbed her temples. Done for the day? I asked cautiously. She nodded. Just tired. I hesitated for a moment, then walked behind her and, mimicking something I'd seen in a movie, gently started massaging her shoulders. She stiffened for a second, but didn't say anything or push me away. I tentatively applied a little more pressure and felt the tension in her shoulders begin to release. Ding! Target's mood is improving. Reward. Life value plus 5%. Hey, this was working. I felt a small spark of pride. After about 15 minutes, Sophia said softly, That's enough. I stopped and walked around to face her. The weariness in her face had definitely lessened. Thank you, she said, looking at me. Her tone was softer than usual. You're welcome. I smiled, feeling like maybe the ice between us was starting to thaw. Are you bored staying in here? She asked. A little, I admitted. She stood up. I want to show you something. Show me what? I asked, curious. You'll see, she said with a mysterious smile. She led me out of the lounge, down a long hallway, and stopped in front of an unmarked door. She pushed the door open. The room inside was pitch black. What is this? I asked, confused. Sophia didn't answer. She flipped a switch. As the lights flickered on, I gasped. The room was enormous, and every wall was covered with paintings. And the subject of every single painting was me. There I was, reading a book in a library. There I was, playing basketball. There I was, asleep. And there were countless other scenes I had no memory of. The styles were all different, but each portrait was rendered with an intimate, lifelike detail. It was clear the artist knew me very, very well. I stood there, speechless, surrounded by 100 different versions of myself. Sophia came to my side, her gaze soft as she looked at the paintings. "I painted these," she said quietly. "You did?" I looked at her, stunned. I had no idea she was so talented. She nodded. "From the moment I met you, I loved painting you. I felt like I could never capture enough." I looked at her profile, my heart swelling with a strange warmth. She cared about me this much. Ding! Memory fragment unlocked. A blurry image flashed through my mind. I saw a girl with a sketchbook sitting in the corner of a library, secretly drawing a boy who was lost in a book. The girl was a younger Sophia, and the boy was me. I think I remember something," I murmured. Sophia's eyes lit up. She grabbed my hand, her voice filled with excitement. "Really, what do you remember?" "I remember. You used to draw me in the library, in secret," I said, looking at her. A brilliant smile spread across Sophia's face. It was the happiest I had ever seen her. "You finally remember." Her smile was like the sun, lighting up the entire room and warming my heart. Ding! Target satisfaction level has increased dramatically. Reward: life value plus 15%. Seeing her so happy made me happy too. "Let's look at the others," Sophia said, pulling my hand and leading me to another painting. This one was of the two of us at an amusement park. I was buying her cotton candy, and she was smiling, her face radiating pure joy. Looking at it, another memory fragment surfaced. The sun was bright that day. We went to the amusement park, and she was like a little kid dragging me from one ride to the next. At the end of the day, she insisted on getting the biggest cotton candy they had. "I remember this," I said with a laugh. "You got cotton candy all over your face." Sophia blushed. "That was your fault. You were the one who bought the giant one." We looked at each other and smiled. The air between us felt sweet. We moved from one painting to the next, and each one unlocked another beautiful memory. The fragments began to connect, like pieces of a puzzle, slowly forming a complete picture in my mind. I remembered the first time we held hands, our first hug, the thrill of our first kiss. I remembered all the little moments we shared, the good times, the sad times, the arguments, and the making up. Sophia held my hand the entire time, her face glowing with happiness as she recounted the little details from our past. I listened intently, feeling as if I was reliving those moments all over again. Before we knew it, the sky outside had grown dark. "We should go home," Sophia said. "Yeah," I nodded. On the way back, the car was no longer filled with an awkward silence. We talked and laughed, reminiscing about our shared past. I felt myself growing closer to Sophia with every passing minute. After we got home and had dinner, Sophia said, out of the blue, "You're sleeping with me tonight." I froze, my face instantly turning red. "Ugh, I don't know if that's a good idea." Sophia shot me a look. "What, you don't want to?" "You used to beg to sleep with me every night." I thought back to the memories. It was true. The old me had been incredibly clingy. "It's not that I don't want to," I said, scratching my head. "It's just a little sudden." "What's so sudden about it?" She took my hand and started pulling me upstairs. "Come on, I'm tired." She led me into her bedroom. It was a large, warmly decorated space that smelled like everything else she owned, of that lovely woodsy scent. She pulled a set of pajamas from her closet and handed them to me. "Change." I took the pajamas and ducked into the bathroom, feeling my cheeks burn. When I came out, Sophia was already in bed, wearing a silk nightgown that clung to her curves. I found myself staring and quickly looked away, walking over to the other side of the bed and lying down. The bed was huge, but I still felt cramped, my body stiff as a board. Sophia turned to face me, her eyes soft. "Why are you so nervous?" I'm not," I stammered. She smiled and reached out, wrapping an arm around my waist. "Relax." Her body was soft and warm. I could feel my heart start to race again. Slowly, I let my body relax, and I wrapped my arms around her in return. We held each other like that in silence, feeling the rhythm of each other's heartbeats and the warmth of our bodies. After a long time, I heard Sophia whisper, "Liam, don't ever leave me again." "I won't," I said, holding her tighter. "I'll never leave you." She nuzzled against my chest like a kitten and slowly drifted off to sleep. I looked down at her sleeping face, my heart overflowing with a sense of peace and happiness. I made a silent promise to myself that I would protect her, always. The days passed, and my bond with Sophia grew deeper. The strange physical ailments that had plagued me began to fade away, disappearing so gradually I barely noticed. Maybe it was the power of happiness, or maybe the system was finally working its magic. I felt healthier, stronger. The pale, sickly version of me was gone. As Sophia watched me get better day by day, her smiles became more frequent, and the darkness in her eyes finally lifted, replaced by a radiant light. She started going back to work more often, but always came home on time. We would cook dinner together, watch movies, and take evening walks, just like any normal couple. On weekends, we'd drive out to the countryside for a picnic or catch a new movie. Sometimes we'd go back to the library where we first met, sitting in our old spots and reading in comfortable silence. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and peaceful. Sophia would lean her head on my shoulder, a contented smile on her face. "Liam," she'd whisper, "this is so nice." "Yeah," I'd say, squeezing her hand. "It really is." My heart was full of gratitude, to the system for giving me a second chance with her, and to Sophia for never giving up on me. One day, Sophia took me back to the amusement park we'd first visited. "Remember this place?" she asked with a grin. "Of course," I said, playfully tapping her nose. "This is where someone turned into a chipmunk with a face full of cotton candy." She blushed and playfully smacked my arm. "Be quiet." We went on all the rides, just like we used to. The roller coaster, the Ferris wheel, the carousel. Every moment was filled with our laughter. We got married again. The ceremony was small, with just our closest friends and family. But Sophia's smile was the most brilliant thing I had ever seen. She was beautiful. Life after the wedding was even sweeter. Sophia was no longer the cold, intimidating CEO. With me, she was playful and affectionate, showing me a side of herself no one else ever saw. Sometimes, I'd watch her paint. She was still always painting me, just like she did when we first met. "Why are you always painting me?" I asked, wrapping my arms around her from behind and resting my chin on her shoulder. "Because you're the most beautiful thing in the world," she said, turning to kiss my cheek. "And I want to capture every single moment we have together, so I can remember them forever." I looked into her bright, loving eyes and felt my heart swell. I knew, without a doubt, that we would be happy together for the rest of our lives. Ding! Mission complete. Host and target have achieved maximum happiness index. The system will now disengage. We wish the host a lifetime of happiness. The voice in my head faded away for the last time. I didn't mind. I knew that even without a system, Sophia and I would be just fine. The days were quiet and beautiful. Having you by my side is all I need. The end. Epilogue, alternate universe, tragic ending. The more time we spent together, the more my memories returned. I remembered how we got together, the spot where we had our first date, the promises I made to her. And finally, I remembered how I died. It was an accident. I'd run into the street to save a little kid who wasn't looking and was hit by a truck that had lost control of its brakes. Remembering it sent a chill down my spine, but it also made me cherish my time with Sophia even more. But just as my mind was becoming whole, my body started to fail. At first, it was just dizzy spells. I brushed them off as fatigue, but it got worse. The dizziness became more frequent, sometimes accompanied by waves of nausea. One day, while I was peeling an apple for Sophia, the world suddenly went black. The knife slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. Sophia rushed over, her face etched with worry. "Liam, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Probably just low blood sugar." "No, I'm taking you to the hospital," she insisted. "Really, it's nothing. I just need to rest." I didn't want her to worry. She frowned, her eyes filled with fear, but she eventually relented, helping me to the sofa and bringing me a glass of juice. The sugar helped, but Sophia's worried gaze never left me. After that, she became even more protective, refusing to let me do anything that might tire me out. But my condition only deteriorated. A strange, phantom pain started to plague me. Sometimes it was a headache, sometimes a stomachache, sometimes an ache deep in my bones. I noticed my skin was growing paler, almost translucent. I was losing weight rapidly. Sophia saw it all, and the worry was eating her alive. Finally, she put her foot down and dragged me to the hospital. After a battery of tests, the doctor called Sophia into his office. When she came out, her eyes were red and swollen, her face a mask of grief and despair. "What did he say?" I asked, a cold dread creeping into my heart. She walked over to me and forced a smile. "He said you're fine, just a little anemic. We just need to get you on some supplements." I knew she was lying. I could see it in her eyes. "Sophia, tell me the truth," I said, taking her hand. Tears immediately streamed down her face. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Liam, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." My heart pounded in my chest. "What is it? Tell me." "I don't know," she cried, shaking her head. "The doctors can't explain it. They said they've never seen anything like it." I stood there, frozen, my mind blank. Was I going to die again? I looked at Sophia's heartbroken face, and it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. We had just found each other again. How could we be torn apart so soon? "Don't cry," I said, my voice cracking as I wiped away her tears. I tried to smile. "It can't be that serious." I shook my head, my heart aching as I looked at her. "Sophia," I said softly, "stop torturing yourself like this." She managed a weak smile and reached up to touch my cheek. "As long as I'm with you, it's not torture." I knew she was lying. The pain in her eyes gave her away. In the days that followed, my body grew weaker and my consciousness began to drift. Sometimes I'd see strange things, visions of Sophia alone, crying in an empty room. I'd reach out to comfort her, only for my hand to pass right through her. System alert. Energy fluctuation critical. Hallucination stability is degrading. Hallucination? What hallucination? I was completely lost. Sophia seemed to sense my confusion and gripped my hand tighter. "Liam, what is it?" I looked at her, but her face was becoming blurry. I don't know. This started happening more often. My body would become transparent, and sometimes Sophia would reach for something and her arm would pass right through me. She never reacted, acting as if nothing had happened, continuing to feed me, clean me, and read to me every day. Then I saw it. She was holding a black and white photograph of me. She sat by the bed, stroking the picture and crying. "Liam, I know you're gone," she whispered to the photo, "but I can't let you go." My heart shattered. She knew all along that I was just a figment of her imagination, but she refused to wake up. "Sophia." I tried to speak, but no sound came out. She seemed to hear me anyway. She looked up, smiling in my direction. "Look, Liam, the weather is beautiful today. You always love days like this." Watching her talk to empty air was agony. She knew I was dead, that none of this was real, but she couldn't let go. As time went on, I became more and more transparent, until I could barely see myself. But Sophia's memories only grew sharper. She would talk constantly about our past, about all the happy, sweet moments we shared. The happier she sounded, the more I faded, the closer I came to the truth that I was nothing but a ghost in her mind. "Do you remember, Liam?" she said with a smile. "On our first date, you were so nervous you spilled coffee all over yourself." I tried to nod, but my neck wouldn't move. She didn't seem to notice. "You were so cute when you blushed." Her smile was radiant, but her eyes were full of tears. "And that time you waited in line for 3 hours to buy me that limited edition cake, but it got squished in the crowd. You almost cried." My body felt weightless, as if I was about to dissolve into nothing. Sophia finally sensed it. She reached for me, but her hands grasped at empty air. "Liam," she screamed, her voice breaking. As I faded completely, I used the last of my strength to push a single word from the void into her mind. "Sophia." Her head snapped up, her tear-blurred eyes searching the room. "Liam, is that you?" "It's me." My voice was a faint echo. "Stop looking. You can't see me." She froze, her body trembling violently. "You're leaving? Aren't you?" "Yes." I could feel myself unraveling. Listen to me, Sophia. You have to stop living in your memories. She fell to her knees, clawing at the air in front of her. No, don't go, Liam. I only want to live in my memories with you. You foolish girl, my voice echoed. I'm dead. I've been dead for a long time. All of this, is just a prison you've built for yourself. Sunlight streamed through her fingers, illuminating her pale, tear-streaked face. But I can't. The world is too cold without you. Look outside. I urge her. Spring is here. You should be seeing the flowers bloom, feeling the warm breeze, not locking yourself in an empty house with a ghost. She shook her head, tears hitting the floor. I can't. How can I live without you? You can. A flash of her, strong and confident, crossed my fading consciousness. You're Sophia Blackwood. You're the CEO who can handle anything. You're not the little girl who can only hide in her memories and cry. She buried her head in her hands, her sobs raw and broken. But I only want to be your little girl. Forget me. The words took everything I had left. My form dissolved. I'm your obsession, Sophia, not your salvation. No. Her voice was a shattered whisper. Live well, Sophia. I took one last look at her trembling form. That is the only way to remember me. My consciousness dissolved into darkness. I heard her final, heart-wrenching scream, but I could no longer answer. The room was finally empty. It was just her and a black-and-white photograph stained with tears. Sophia collapsed on the floor and wailed, clutching the picture to her chest. I knew you were gone, she cried. But I just couldn't. I couldn't let you go. The empty room echoed with her sobs. She knew it was all a hallucination, a dream she had woven for herself. But she refused to wake up, because only in the dream could she have me back. Only in the dream could she feel the warmth that had long since vanished from her life. Sunlight poured through the window, but it could not dispel the cold that clung to her. She curled up on the floor, clutching the photograph like a lost child. Perhaps, for her, living in a hallucination was its own kind of happiness. Even if it was false, even if it was fleeting, she would rather drown in it than wake up. Because waking up meant facing the cruel reality that her Liam was gone forever. And all the beautiful memories were now just knives, warming her and bleeding her out at the same time. The more she remembered the good times, the more she knew they were gone for good. But still, she wouldn't let go, choosing to hold on to this beautiful, fake happiness until the day the illusion finally consumed her completely. Epilogue end.